Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else that may be watching this. I am Konge Machinima, and today I'm going to show a lot of you how I deal with lighting and shadows and all that kind of stuff within Adobe After Effects. And, well, we're not really using this picture here. We're going to start from the bottom so I can show you the process that I go through when I'm doing these videos here. So, essentially, what I do is that for most of my videos, I deal with several compositions within other compositions. Which you can see here that I have a composition here purely for the lightning, and I have a composition for the character without anything else. And even without it, within a composition, I have another composition for shadows, while in the other one, we have how I deal with I believe it's lighting. Yeah, something like that. I don't even remember at this point. So, let's go back way to the beginning here. We're going to go through a completely new project and make a new composition. And here we are. We have a new composition here and we're ready to machinimate. So, of course, what you want to do first is upload the necessary files that you're going to use. Make a video out of it. So, we're just going to choose something quite... I don't know. Let's take this one. Of Thompshire here. Yeah, you know what? Let's take this one. It's going to be fine. So, as you may have guessed, and as you probably do yourself if you're a machinimator, you just, go ahead and start using keylight in order to remove the green screen behind the character, which is really the basics of how to machinimate. So, first of all, go through, keylight, and, well, this is not technically what I'm going to explain in the tutorial, but I always go into screen matte and I just go shrink by -2 and softness by 1. I know that Nixium did the same back in the day, in like 2014, I believe. Anyway, we go in here, and now we have the character. What we need now is the background, and that's another relatively easy step, so we're just going to ride through all the files that I have here until we find some that I think is suitable for the character. And sure, let's take this one. Gonna put it in here. And now we have the most simple part of any machinima, a character and his background. Now, for lighting and to change the atmosphere, I always go in and use at least 3 different adjustment layers. And for those that are not sure what an adjustment layer is, it's essentially just a tool that you use to put a specific color or any effect and just make it touch everything that is below that adjustment layer. So in this case we have an adjustment layer down here which is above the character file and the background. And then what I do here is that I just usually make one adjustment layer with the typical mid-tone, the default color, and I make it blend 80%. Then I go in, I use, under color correction, the tool called curves, and I go in, move it up here, move it down here a bit, and already we get a bit of a more cinematic feel that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. You can see the difference if I turn it on and off. The problem here is that it's not really enough. It doesn't really add that complete crispy effect of being, a very dramatic scene or whatnot. So we're going to add another adjustment layer. And we're gonna go in here, and now I usually choose a color which fits the theme of whatever I'm trying to create. And in this case we have Thompshire in the middle of Elwyn Forest. So what I'm going to do is I go up here, choose this relatively light green color, and once again I blend it at 80%. And once again, I go in and use curves. Once again, we see a very clear difference from when we are not using the adjustment layer. Now, if we turn both adjustment layers off, this is the final result. Oops. There. The difference is quite visible. And now, the third adjustment layer I use is usually, it depends on what I'm trying to do, but usually we're dealing with me going in and choosing a gray color and then just add, blend it with 80 once more. And I usually do this because I think it adds a bit of a dark tone to it, and I usually deal with, dark lighting in my own machinimas, so that's what we're going to go with here. Now, when we have this many files here, what I do is I begin making extra compositions in order to deal with the entire clip in several bits. So what I'm going to do here is that I take the character of Thompshire and I take the background here and I make it into its own composition by pre-composing it, so to speak. So now we have a separate composition with only the character and the background. So again, you see the clear difference here. What we're going to do now is that we want to make it a bit more dark. We don't want Thompshire to be light all over the place here. We want to make him a bit dark on the left and maybe on the edge of his shield. So what we do is we make another copy of Thompshire. And that's what we've done here. And now we want to cut him into pieces. Just in After Effects, not in real life. But anyway, we go in here, we cut him in the middle, wherever we want the shadow to be. And now, when we have cut this piece here, we have essentially chosen that this left side of Thompshire is going to be darker than the rest. So now what we do is we go into Tools, and we find the one called Fill. And now, we have filled Thompshire with red blood. But we don't want it to be red blood, we want it to be dark. We want to create a shadow, or at least the illusion of a shadow. So what we're going to do now is we change the color to pitch black. The issue now is that the character is completely black and it switches from being normal on the right, as you can see, to being completely black on the left. So first of all, we go in here and we only make the opacity 50%. So now it's not as noticeable, but you still see a clear cut here. So the problem here is that we need to, as many other Machinimators do, feather it. So that's what we're going to do. I usually feather it like 50%, so it's not completely noticeable, but it's still sort of sharp, because like if we use 150, which I sometimes do, it blends completely and it's not really noticeable where the shadow starts, so you don't get an idea of what creates the shadow. So we'll go in here, suddenly we see that he's way darker on the left side here than he is on the right. And if we make it only 50, as we did before, it's even more noticeable. So now we have a completely, a more visually appealing character, because suddenly you feel like the area around him affects how he looks and so on. Now this is one way to deal with the lighting and to create the illusion of a shadow on the actual model. But another thing you can do is that you can take the character here and you create another character. Like you copy him again, and then once again you can go ahead and fill it. Now I chose to put the character way in the back because I want to make this shadow on the ground. So once again, go in, make it pitch black, add the opacity to 50, and now we have to use something called Basic 3D. In Basic 3D, we're able to create a shadow which looks, we changed the posture or the angle of it basically. So when we do like this, we manipulate the shadow to look like it's, on the surface. And sometimes this is a bit difficult to pull off, and I think I've chosen one of the, less good camera angles to do this with. But essentially we go down here And now we can put the character back here. And now when we go back to After Effects, it looks like we're dealing with a shadow here in the back. And I know that the image is still, and we're not dealing with a moving clip, but the idea is the same, because the shadow is going to move just like the character is. And that makes it a lot more easy to deal with, because the animation is exactly the same at the same time. Now, another thing you can do is, and this is pretty simple once more, but you can make another copy, and you can, instead of choosing to make it pitch black in order to make a shadow, you can also just use something like yellow to give the effect of sunlight hitting the character. So this time we go in, we choose yellow, and suddenly we have the opacity here, which makes it look not that great. So once more, we're going to go back and we're going to choose an opacity, this time of only 10%. And that's because a color like yellow is much more noticeable, and it looks a lot more unrealistic on the character if it's so noticeable as the shadow is. Then we're going to choose a feather effect of 100. And even here, without the adjustment layers, you can see the effect that it has. Now, we have what could essentially be a finished shot here. We have a character who looks ready to fight, we have the shadow in the back, and the lighting is done. Unless you want to add one more final step, and I don't always do this, but sometimes it's a good idea. You can also copy the background and do the exact same, where you cut the left side in order to emphasize that there's a shadow, or a tree maybe, that covers the entire left side of not just the character, but also the area that we see in the clip. So once more, we go in, we change the color to pitch black, we make the opacity maybe only 30% because it's more noticeable in the background. And now when you go in here, the entire left side looks a lot darker. And that's really it, folks. That's how you can use shadows and use the characters that you already put in order to emulate what is essentially a shadow covering half the model that you use. So I suppose that's it. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.